Hello and welcome back to Hindsight is 50/50. I'm the host J-Rod with my co-host, the ORG old retired guy. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Jared. I'm, wet for the first time. Seems
Inky.
like in forever. And I mean that literally. It's like we had a torrential rainstorm last night. I
So
mean,
did we.
we had heavy rain. We had heavy rain today for a little bit, but I mean, you saw it. You were out here. Our yard was burned up. So we needed it. And as good as the garden was doing, I was having to water that every day. And yeah, and it's rained several times today. One time pretty heavy today, but man, last night, god dang.
It seems like in the last 2 weeks, maybe week and a half, we've had harder rain than I can remember in 5 or 6 years. And we've had, pretty heavy rains where like the droplets are actually heavy themselves in the past. But I mean, this was substantially heavier than normal. And I'm sure there's some sort of science behind it or whatever the case may be. But I kind of have like my own thoughts on it. And I just, with the train derailing and the chemicals in the air, down in Ohio, and then with the forest fires and the air quality coming from Canada that's happened this past year, I really do think that, we look at everything as individuals, like even plants living on this planet, but it's like the planet itself really is just one giant living thing. And so if something was trying to preserve itself or fix the natural order back, it's like, man, that was one hell of a cleanse we just got. And that's what I thought it was, is we've just had so many pollutants and bad shit in the air in the past 6 months or so that it's like we finally just got these monster rainstorms because it's like we got to flush this shit out and dilute it.
Well, the weird thing is because I was getting concerned about it. And again, I'm not a farmer. I've got a little garden. And when you have a little garden, you pay attention to it more. And then when you see your yard burning up, which it was, crunchy, it was so dry. I was looking that up and it was about, I want to say the first day of summer, like June 21st or 22nd. I looked it up and our annual rainfall was about on average. In fact, I think it was even a little bit above. The problem is that we had it all by March or the first 2 weeks of April. And then it was just been dry. I mean,
well, and I still think the chemicals have to do with that too, though.
I don't know
mean,
that
like when
I couldn't fight you on that.
But when you're talking about the ozone, right, and how it protects us, the ozone layer, all that stuff, and there can be depletion of that, it's like, okay, but we know that every type of lens out there focuses light in a different magnitude. So it's like if we have layers of chemicals that have been released in the sky, the sun could be coming through hotter than normal. Like the temperature might be the same, but it could actually be drying out those plants, causing all this problem. And I'm not saying it's on a global enough scale to do it, but I do think it had some effect because I've even noticed it around here. I mean, we usually have spots where like it's a little more shaded or there's a big tree and the rain falls off to the side and we get like a dry spot and it almost starts to just turn into dirt with no grass. But this year, I mean, half that yard over there is just dirt. It doesn't even look like there ever was grass there.
Oh yeah, it's just like I said, the yard was crunchy. And I remember last year, and it doesn't happen often, but last season, the yard was green all summer. I mean, I literally was having to mow once a week all summer long, even into August through the whole season. And this year, man, no, I hadn't mowed in probably a month. And when I did, I mowed that the day of the birthday party for Jameson. I mowed that morning, but didn't even mow the whole yard. I was just trying to mow down, the places where some weeds had grown because in the
Yeah, but
yard
it sucks because
proper.
you can't take pride in your yard when it's
Well, yeah, and I
all
couldn't
burnt
even tell
out.
where I was going. Unless
It's
there were
so
weeds there, I couldn't keep track of it. But it's amazing, how things rebound. It's already greened up quite a bit, and the little bit of rain that we've had, and it's like I'm not gonna bitch. It's like we needed it, so
oh yeah.
if it comes fast, it comes fast. I wish it
Oh,
would
it's
be a
funny you say that
slower.
because the kids at JR's birthday party were like playing out in the splash pad in the pool, all that, and the water started leaking in the yard, and Mom was like, trying to keep it together. And I looked at her, I was like, it doesn't matter. I understand nobody wants a big wet spot in their yard, but your yard's dead right now.
Oh yeah.
And she goes, well, don't tell your dad that. He's not happy about it. And I
Well,
was like,
no.
he didn't do it. It's like your grass is dead. The little bit of hose water
No,
ain't
it's
gonna fucking
burnt.
hurt it.
It's burnt, and we're being on all the sand. You
Yeah,
can't get this
you
yard
guys
wet
got a
enough.
ton of
Yeah,
sand.
yeah, you can't get this yard wet enough. But it was, I mean, it's just like, and we're supposed to get some more rain yet today, so that's a good thing. And
It
hopefully
rained so
things
hard
will.
our power went out for a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hopefully things will, like green up a little bit. I mean, I don't, want to say I need to mow the yard every 5 days, but it's nice when it's green, and not crunchy when you walk on it. But yeah, Saturday we had Jameson's second birthday party, and that was fun. Um, I think, well, in fact, I know because I don't know how, I know you had been sick. We were both sick after we had our the anniversary party, and then we had Jackson and Juliana the next Tuesday, and I think they were kind of sick, and I don't know where we got it, if we got it from them or where we got it. Anyway,
I think we all got it from the bounce house because the
well,
kids
we
were on the
could have,
bounce
but
house and being covered in water. We just gave the germs like perfect transport for everyone who's drying the kids off.
and we were sick. I mean, I was sick again. It wasn't COVID sick, but I was sick, and your mom got sick too. And then you throw that in there, and it's been hard to get back on a weekly schedule of doing this because, in a summer cold is miserable. That is just, they always say a summer cold's a different animal. It truly is. That just sucks.
Well,
Because you
and
want to go
you're
outside.
stuffed up too. Like when we're trying to
Yeah.
record, you're stuffed up, so you sound weird. I'm a little stuffed up right now, but also, and I've noticed this, and for anyone who it annoys out there, I apologize, but a lot of times to be able to talk, I have to have a cough drop in, and it's like sometimes you can hear it move around in my mouth on the podcast, and it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
I hate that, but I'm trying to not skip like a month at a time because it just seems that
No,
every time there's a sickness out there, someone in our family gets it and then it passes through us.
well, yeah. And when you have little kids, it gets passed around, man. It's going to.
And then my wife's a
It's
nurse too,
natural.
so we're taking
Well, that's
everything
fair.
home anyways.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, it was we had the little swimming pool. We had and it was a nice day. The day we had the party Saturday, it was like in the middle 80s, so that was perfect. The moms and grandma got to go outside and sit in lawn chairs and in the shade if they wanted to, and they didn't have to if they didn't want because there was plenty of sunshine, and they got
I
to
want
watch the kids do the splash pad, and I think the kids had a ball. So
Yeah. Oh, they absolutely did. And I did want to tell you, I know we had like a few hiccups figuring out that buggy that you and mom bought the boys to drive
yeah,
around the yard, or not the boys, all the grandkids.
grandkids, yeah.
Um, I know we had a couple of hiccups, but man, they loved it. I mean, JJ was talking about it the rest of the night and the next day, but he's been talking about it at home and like how excited he is about that truck.
Well, it's so
So
funny because when we were first having the hiccups, he gets out of it and he slams the door. And he goes, "Stupid car."
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not kidding. Like he does things like that where I can't understand where he's got it from because we don't watch adult TV in front of them. Melissa and I don't really watch TV until the kids are in bed. So if the TV's on, it's like cartoons, and neither one of us does anything like that around like a vehicle or. And so it was so weird that like
Stupid car.
he slams the door and says "stupid car," and it's like, who did you see do that? And we've got our idea, but there's no
Yeah.
way of proving it. And it's just they're such sponges. You wonder.
Oh yeah.
For all we know, it could have been some dude whose car wouldn't start when we were walking by with groceries in the parking lot, and
But
he saw it. And he
he's continues to be, and I don't know if you noticed it, but it's especially JJ because he's older. And Jameson, I think, is getting to be that way too. But JJ, because he's older, it's like he likes when I'm doing something, he's fine to be able to help. I mean, he wants to go along. He wants to help. He wants to figure out what I'm doing. He wants to do it if I'll let him, and if it's safe, I will. Um, but yeah, we were moving hoses around to do the splash pad, and he was helping me, and we were taking nozzles off and putting them on, and I took him through the garden and showed him what things were, and he is very focused, you know, and he likes. I'm real patient with him, and again, if he can do it safely, I'll let him do it. I don't care how much time it takes.
yeah, I mean,
What
there's
do
all
I care?
there. It's almost. I know everybody's kids are different and all that, but there's if you're painting it with a broad brush, there's almost two kinds of kids. The ones who are like, whatever, and that's Jameson. Or there's JJ who thrives on learning. It's like, I will get upset if you don't teach me how to do this. And
Yeah.
that's how he is. So I mean, whether we're going to pick up the dogs, he wants to do it. If you're taking the dogs out, if you're picking up their poop, he wants to help you do it. If you're
Yeah.
cooking dinner, he wants to help you do it, and he will get upset if you don't let him. And a huge part of it is he wants to learn it so he can do it on his own. And you've almost kind of got to be careful with it because it's a bit of a double-edged sword because you want him to be independent and you love for him to learn, but also like things start getting sketchy. Sometimes it's in an innocent way, sometimes it's not, like, opening doors and letting the dogs outside. But
Right.
like we in the mornings, he wanted to help with breakfast always. And so
Mhm.
it's like we would wake up because for a long time we had a sleeve on his door so he couldn't get out, and it's still there, but as long as he behaves the night before, we leave his door cracked so that he can get up in the morning. And the first thing he does is he gets up and he comes to our bedroom and wakes us up. But before we made sure that was the first thing he did, he was getting up, getting the milk out, the butter out, the bread out, the eggs out, and all of that, and trying to get plates out and everything.
Mhm.
And then he'd come get us, and it's like, man, if you drop a carton of eggs or the milk explodes on the floor, like, oh my god. And he's getting all this stuff out, and he just wants to help and he just wants to learn, but you kind of have to hone him in a little bit because a lot of times he'll just go do stuff. It's the same thing. I mean, you've seen it where every little kid wants to shut the door, and it's like, yeah, but you don't want to slam your fingers in the door.
Right. Right. And he's locked our bathroom doors before.
Oh
But
god.
oh yeah, yeah. We've had to,
Jamie
because
did that for like 2 weeks in a
yeah,
row, and I
and
had
we
to
had to
teach Melissa how
figure
to
out where the
pick it.
keys were.
I used a bobby pin.
I think your mom did too, actually. Maybe a nail file, but she got, because we never.
Yeah, who keeps track of that little fucking key?
No, no,
It's
we
like
don't.
a
We don't.
Honey I Shrunk the Kid's
But
shovel.
one of the coolest things about Saturday, and Jacob and Jen weren't able to make it, and I totally get it.
Yeah.
They're going on vacation. They didn't want their kids to get sick, and I
He
understand that.
texted me today too. They forgot to call us yesterday.
Oh
And
yeah.
he's like, I feel so bad, man. Can we call today? And they've just had a lot going on. Jackson had an allergy test, and things kind of went awry from that.
Oh really?
Yeah, he's doing all right, but he's still got like some eczema scabs from it and all kinds of stuff. Like it was
Okay.
pretty hard on him.
Okay. Well,
Nothing. I don't think it was any like hospitalization, but
I
you
you
know how
know I didn't
Jackson is.
even I didn't even think about calling yesterday. I mean, we said happy birthday Saturday, and
But you also saw him the day
yeah, we
of.
did, and we said happy birthday before he left,
But
but I
Jacob
didn't.
wasn't there.
I
Like they
lost
weren't at the party
track
or anything.
that yesterday was actually his birthday.
I
I
did.
did.
I did a little bit. Not
Yeah,
like I
I did.
knew, and I said
I
happy
did too.
birthday first thing in the morning. But at the like towards
Wh-
the end of the day, I asked Melissa. I was like, "Are you mad that like we haven't really done anything?" She's like, "No, I feel weird about it, but like we've celebrated his birthday for an entire day the day before, and then the morning of. It's like by the time you get to the afternoon, especially with all the driving, it's almost okay. It's time to be a normal day, and let's get the kids tucked in, and
Well, and yeah, and it's not like he's going to remember it, and it's not like you didn't celebrate because you
And if
did.
he was of age to understand that we celebrated the day before, he wouldn't care about the day of either. So
Right. One of the coolest things for me was that my brother and my mom came.
very
And
cool.
and my mom doesn't even leave the house much. And with my brother, he only drives to places where he knows where he's going. And you get the whole thing with my mom won't ride on the freeway.
Yes.
And
She's never
and
had the internet, had to force her to get a cell
never
phone,
had a credit card
and won't ride on the expressway at
and
all.
never had a debit card. Nope. But so I gave Rick, back way instructions, which it's the way I go all the time anyway,
Yeah.
to my mom and dad's house or to mom's house now. But anyway, I was just really glad they came, and you could tell he was amazed because even though we were missing Jacob and Jennifer and Jackson and Juliana, there was still a house full. And there was still, especially at mealtime, I mean, I'm running in and out cooking. Your mom and Kelly and Melissa are getting all kinds of stuff ready, you know, food and everything ready, and I'm cooking on the grill, and Rick, I think, was just in awe of that.
Well, I
He
think
he he
I think
texted me a bunch of times yesterday about it.
I think he's also in awe like with the kids because,
Oh yeah.
we had Sunday dinners growing up at your mom's house and it was you, me, my brothers, Uncle Rick, Aunt Mick, Carol, Grandpa, Grandma, and sometimes like Jeff or Sue or whoever. So I mean, like being used to a house full of people eating is one thing, but Rick had Taryn, his daughter, very late,
Yes.
and so forever it was just me and my brothers were the only nephews or grandkids in the house. So just with all those adults getting us three to get along or be somewhat decent or even try and play with us, there was only three of us and we were all brothers, so we were used to having to share things and all that stuff. And you know how it is when siblings get together, you got the little petty fights, but for the most part you can kind of round them up. But when cousins get together and the two different behaviors start clashing, sometimes it's perfect, sometimes it's horrific. That's just how it goes. And forever it was just us three boys, and then by the time his daughter came along, us three boys were adults. But then he comes into our house and it's like there's 4 little kids running around, and that's only because we're missing 2 more.
Right. Right.
And it's just there's constant noise, constant toys, constant chaos. Somebody's hungry, the other one pooped, and we all get along, but it's just a different type of like dysfunctionally functional. Where at Grandma Sawyer's, everyone learned to talk across the room over one another and hold conversations on diagonals. But in this scenario, everyone has to work as a team to make sure the kids are constantly watched, they're okay, nobody feels left out or slighted. And it's like a chaotic unit working together in harmony. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's pure chaos, but everyone's on the same team.
Oh yeah, and I mean dinner was great and
Oh,
everything
the
got
food was
done on
so good.
time. Yeah, it was good. That was good. I mean, and it
And
was
for
just
the most part, everyone puts aside any little petty BS they may have, and we all get along, have a pretty good time, which is,
oh yeah.
something I know not every family does, and I'm pretty appreciative of that because it's like when we get
Well,
together, especially when our kids, cousins of one another can get together, it's like we want them to have fun.
right. And it's about them.
Yes.
It's about them. The one thing I did notice whenever we have a party like that, our garbage like increases tenfold.
Oh,
And and
so do
and
your beer bottle.
I went through this morning. Boy, does that dumpster smell like baby shit.
Yeah.
Ooh. Oh,
Well,
mister.
so
And then
Jr.
throw
had
in some warm weather. Oh, you are
Yeah,
right.
well, and
You're
soggy diapers
right.
from the splash pad and all that. But JR had just been cruising, like pooping once a day, nice easy formed poops, and then it's like we got to your house and within about 2 hours he shit soft 4 times. And it's
Oh,
like good luck.
that I
Good
mean,
luck.
I'm not kidding you. It took my breath away. I moved because I have like two dumpsters, right? Or dump carts. I've got the one by the door that's staging area. And then the one that I take out by the road because that's, it's a few feet. I got to move it 150 feet. And I was moving the stuff because the one by the door was almost full. And the
Yeah.
diapers or the bags with diapers in them were just tied up like tiny little grocery plastic bags that were kind of laid in a spot with buzzing flies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so I mean, I
Somebody
walked out.
shave a lemon
Oh,
and stuff it in there. Jesus.
dude, I bought a container of Arm& and Hammer and dumped it in the dumpster. But yeah, I mean, I walked out there this morning. It's like, oh, I can't do this. And so I moved it from one dump cart to the other to get it away from the service door that goes into the house. And then when I put it in that other cart, literally, holy crap. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well,
it, but
we were having a house showing, and Melissa has to move the dog shit because we have to put it like in a trash bag that's in a box out by our front door because you have to pick it up every day, and there's nowhere to put it until the trash comes. And then we have the diaper pail for the boys, and she was just like moving them over to the garage when for the showing, and I'm like, you cannot do that. And she's like, "What do you mean?" I go, "People are gonna want to see the garage. Like a lot of people are gonna want to see the garage, and especially in an upstairs condo that's kind of like half your house." And so I was like, we gotta get the bags, and we'll put it all in the dumpster pail because the dumpster pail, if you close that and you have one of the nicer ones, not only can you get like scented bags and stuff, but every time the lid closes, it sprays air freshener and deodorizer in there. And so it's like when the lid closes, as long as you can make sure it's flush and closed, no scent comes out. Now, when you open it, dear God help you. But when it's closed, you're all good. And she was just gonna put like the poop bags in the garage. It's like, Melissa, it's 80. And yesterday on our drive home, it was 90 degrees.
right.
It's like, man, you have poop in the garage. People are gonna smell it before they even get around the house.
Yeah. which isn't going to help in the sale.
No.
But speaking of that, you have big news, man. This
Yeah,
is like
so
huge.
well, part of the reason we haven't been able to record was obviously we were sick. Then we also had JR's birthday, so we couldn't make it up on the weekend. But Melissa and I have been going through the process of buying a house. And so it's been a 2-year search, and we finally found one that we liked, that was in our price point, and it wasn't sacrificing on anything. We were getting all of our boxes checked without any negatives. And we had not come across that at all yet. So we were fairly aggressive with our offer, went in. They accepted our offer, passed inspection, and we close here shortly, but they have occupancy till August. And actually, we listed our condo, had a ton of viewings, and also had an open house. And yesterday we accepted an offer. And so we got um, a little bit over what our asking price was, which was very nice. And we have free occupancy until September 1st. So that allows us to have the people who are in the house we bought move out and us move in before we have to get out of here.
That's cool. That's good. You know, I I have to you'll have to forgive me and indulge me on this.
Yeah.
You know, I worked for a guy who for a lot of years and who in a lot of ways is really good to me, but he'd never give me credit for anything. Or it was painstaking for him to do that, especially when it was telling someone who mattered. And when you guys, because we went to look, we went with you to look at a house that was in the same area as the one you ended up getting. Your mom and I both went. And I was talking to Melissa after, kind of at the end of that viewing. And I just said, you know, if this is the one you want, because the market's so hot, I said, I'd go in hot. I mean, I'd go in, you like go like max what you can spend if you want it that bad and be aggressive because every place that I know of, including what you just described with your condo, have gone for above asking price. You know,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, I'm
how
not
real
afraid to
estate.
share the numbers on the
Nah,
condo. I'm
don't
not
do
going to
that.
talk about my house, but the
That's
condo,
that's personal. Don't
well,
do
the
that.
condo doesn't matter to me, to be honest. But I mean, I'm not going to talk about the house, but with the condo, just for people out there, who maybe weren't paying attention to the housing market, 9 years ago, Melissa bought this condo before I even met her, and she bought it for 126,000. And the offer that we just accepted is for 225,000. And so obviously, it's not like we get to pocket all that money, so don't come rob me. That just pays on part of the mortgage of having a real house instead of a condo. But
Right.
it's like you're almost exactly $100,000 more 9 years later on something that, yes, it has new appliances, but other than that, it's becoming dated. And that to me, and again, we're, maybe an even better way to explain it is this is 1,400 square feet.
Right.
It's like growing up as a kid, whenever you heard about houses, I would never even consider to almost 230K for 1,400 square feet, not unless it's got a finished basement. And so, I mean, I think that just shows the jump in the housing market. And I know of others. Um, there was a little cube house that we had looked at, and Melissa wanted to get it just to get a house, and this was about a year ago. And I told her no, and she was pretty upset with me at the time. I think she's thankful now, but that house, I, I mean, it might as well have been like a 1-by-1 jail cell. It was so small. And in 20, what was it? It was like in 2016, I think. that house sold for 97,000, and when the housing market went insane this past year, the house was listed for almost 300K.
Well, when you see, I had a friend. He had a nice place, a ranch out in Grass Lake, and it was isolated, and it was on, I believe, it was on less than an acre, but on a paved road and in the country, and nobody could build close to you. So it was very nice, and it wasn't, it's not far from a little village that has everything you need as far as merchandise, and not far from the city of Jackson. I can't remember. I want to say he listed it for 190, and in 3 days it sold for 239. What the only thing that I was telling Melissa is that I think that you come in, it's that you don't want to get in a bidding war. Nobody
That's
does.
it. You come in high
And you
enough to
come
beat
in
their offer,
as high as you can with a real good offer. And it's like, and that's the best you can do.
or a
And
guarantee that's going to trump another offer.
and it happened to work for you guys, and I'm grateful because, like you said, you got the room that you want, you got the property that you want. It's got enough space, it's got a beautiful yard, it's got beautiful mature trees, it's in the school district, all those things, paved driveway, and it has all the things like you said, all the boxes were checked. Well, when
And
you're in this
and out in the country, a fire station so close, which is
and
awesome.
again, yes, you have isolation without being isolated. I mean, you
Yes.
have neighbors that you could throw a ball and hit their house if you could get it through the trees.
Yeah.
um, but at the same time, it has everything you want, and it's like, to me, and I don't know if you guys decided to do that because I had suggested that, or if that was just coincidental or whatever, but
I
it
think a little
worked.
bit of both. We had the idea, and our realtor did too. When if we found something we liked, but I mean, your opinion holds weight in both of our eyes, and I'm sure in Melissa's, I can speak for that, but definitely in mine. I mean, I've worked with you. You're my dad. I trust you, and I know you've done a lot with houses. And it's like if you think, especially if I've heard it somewhere else and you're confirming it, but it's like if you think something is a good idea, more often than not, I'm gonna agree with you and try and go with that. And for anyone out there buying a house, we actually did get slightly outbid, but what we had done, and this is why I bring up the guarantees, what we had done is we threw in an appraisal guarantee. So if the house didn't appraise for a certain value, they had a certain guaranteed amount above appraisal that they would receive or they would receive our offer if it was within this number range, right?
Okay.
So in this case, we did, I think it was like $10,000 appraisal guarantee. And so as long as it was within $10,000 of appraisal, they got the offer. But if it came in like $40,000 short, then that's when the deal can
And didn't you
change.
guys you guys voluntarily, and this I would give your realtor credit for this. You worked with them on timing too, as far as moving, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
So
so
they needed
and,
free
and
occupancy, no rent through like mid to late August. And so not only them needing the time and not having someone come in right away helped us, but our bid was right up there. But then that guarantee, and the only reason I bring up that guarantee is if there's anyone young out there trying to buy a house, we had someone competing with us that we found out their offer from their agent was whatever anyone bids, they will pay $2,000 more. And it's a cash offer, which is very hard to compete with.
well, yeah, and that's also, it's shitty if you're going against it. It's smart if you're the one doing it. You
Right,
know?
but in
Yeah.
our case, they weren't giving the guarantee, and we did. So the owners lost $2,000, but saved a potential, metric fuck ton if the house didn't appraise. And the funniest part of it is that $2,000 that the other people were going to pay, the house appraised for $2,000 than what we offered. $2,000
2,000
more.
more?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So
Well,
it was just hilarious. Like
you know,
their offer would have been dead nuts of what it appraised for.
and I don't know what curriculums are in school, public schools now, but I'll tell you this, and I mean this with all my heart. You get driver's training, now you have to pay for it. But when I was in school, you had driver's training. I mean, I went for one full semester to class. I mean, we learned about cars. We learned about engines. We learned about how to change tires. We learned about how to check oil. We learned about seat belts. We learned about all this stuff. In a whole semester in high school, I went to class every day, and it was driver's ed study. Well, then in the summertime, you drove, and you had like 9 weeks of driving and once or twice a week. It's a tragedy that, and maybe they do now, but I never had a course on how to buy a house or what to expect when you do, because it's a daunting experience if you've never done it before. It can be daunting.
It really depends on your teacher, and I think it's easy to say that, but you, especially with technology, you have teachers like, okay, I have two very memorable history teachers from when I was in school. One of them was in middle school, and one of them was in high school. And you know them both, and you really like the one that was in middle school. He was a football coach that I unfortunately missed because he took a year off while I was playing. But in this case, he was our history teacher, and he wasn't necessarily like enthused. He didn't try and put like a play on or anything like that, like some teachers do, going over the top. But he was invested in the information, and so he didn't just find ways to make it fun, but he found ways to make it relatable. Just even history repeating itself, things to pay attention to, and he made the information relevant, as well as you felt like you were gaining knowledge, like you felt good about being smarter. I don't know how else to explain it, but he linked that information so well to youth that you could see, like if you were talking about the Civil War, you weren't just talking about slavery and all this stuff with a broad scope. It's like, what would you do if you were standing across from your brother in a field? And the things like that, where it get put in your perspective so that you understood the magnitude of the situation, and you kind of understood how incredible some of the things that in this nation's history were. The other teacher, I had this one in high school, and she was formerly an English teacher and then went to our social studies or history or whatever it was called. And every day we walked in and she pulled down the projector screen and we watched like a different history film. And nobody learned a fucking thing. And that to me is how a lot of classes are. So I had 2 economic classes before we got a new teacher when I was in high school, and I couldn't balance a checkbook. And then we got a brand new teacher who was our economics teacher, and we learned how to buy a house, how to finance a house. We learned how to build credit, use credit cards to avoid late payments. If you had to transfer balances, you could do that. And we actually ran our school's financials for not only the store, but also the concessions at all the games. And we had to keep the booking for it in our class. And having a teacher like that, it's like they absolutely do teach you. But if we would have missed her, I would have had no clue how to do any of it.
Well, I guess my point is it needs to be offered if it's not, because it's a necessary skill. Not everybody's going to buy a house, but they're going to lease an apartment or rent an apartment, and you need to know about those things. And again, I'm not claiming, because I'm out of high school 50 years, but I hear local sports guys talk about it. And there's a lot of schools that don't offer anything.
No, and you
Like
hear about
that,
big time pro athletes
and everybody needs to know it, because it's not just a rubber stamp. And plus, you're going to be signing your life away when you sign those mortgage papers. You're going to sign 30
30 or
documents,
60
an
fixed year.
initial
Yep.
17 more, and it's going to seem daunting. And it's like the fact that it's not offered is a tragedy. And again, I'm basing that on just what I
But you see
hear.
it in all walks of life. It's not just,
I
people
understand
who
that.
can only afford it the first time, but even athletes. Like, so someone might be like a first round draft pick, and then they have a career ending injury, and they go broke, and you read a story about it, and it's like, if you ever see the interviews, it's some kid who is never taught, what those financial obligations are going to be in life. And it's like, well, yeah, you bought $1 million home, but you pay insurance on that home, which is now much more, and you pay taxes every year on that home. And it's the same thing with buying a car. People may buy a car, but they can't afford to replace the tire, or they don't think of how much the insurance costs on that car. And it's like, when these things aren't taught in school, we're doing a disservice to our youth.
I remember hearing a story about Evander Holyfield, and he was fighting, beyond a point in time where I think he should have been fighting. I mean, he may have been, and obviously he's a great athlete, and I'm not trying to criticize him, but he may have been a bit punch drunk by this time,
Yeah.
and he probably shouldn't have been fighting. But it was like he was losing his ass. He had a mansion in Atlanta, which I believe is his hometown. The maintenance was $22,000 a month. All of his taxes, utilities, gardeners, $22,000 a month on one house. And it's like, come on, dude. Like you said, and it is all walks of life. The fact that it isn't mandatory, that everybody has to be taught that, I think is wrong, because it should be mandatory. Because even if you don't buy a house, and lots of people may never buy a house, they're going to rent an apartment. They're going to, or they'll be on the other side of it. They'll be leasing them. They'll be leasing things, and they need to understand those agreements. But I just, it's exciting news. It gets you a whole lot closer to where we are as far as the move.
Yeah.
And, you'll be a half an hour from us instead of 90 minutes if we're lucky, which would be nice. And like I said, it checks all the boxes
It'd
of,
be nice on the gas tank. Because even
oh,
though
yeah.
we're a half hour away, we're 20 some miles. But
Yeah.
because of the city and all that we live in, it's like, we're a 100-mile drive from you guys.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even if you get there in decent time, it's like you're killing the gas tank there and back.
Yeah. But yeah, and Chelsea's a nice town, and Chelsea has everything, I mean,
Well, and we're right
and
between Chelsea and Dexter schools, so we will, kind of. I mean, Chelsea's the plan, but it's like our
and you're
kids will have
close,
a choice, and they're
and you're close
very
to
good
Pinckney
schools.
too.
Yes.
You're close
We're
to
right next to
Pinckney
the
too.
Pinckney Recreation Area. I'm hoping we can do some horseback riding, to be honest. But another thing that may be coming, and I don't want to make any promises, but it has potential, is when we move into this house, which won't be until August, so I wouldn't expect anything before, September-ish. Um, there's potential that we set up a podcast room in that house, and then you and I will be able to record in person with video. So I think that'll be pretty cool if we're able to do it. Again, no guarantees, but something we're going to try and do.
Cool. Cool. Well, we've got this bike trip coming up, and I think we leave August 22nd. And then because we're going to drive down the 22nd. We drive down to Maryville, Tennessee, and we stay the night of the 22nd. We pick up the bikes the next morning, and we have the bikes Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I believe we return them Saturday morning before we leave. And it's like an 8 or 9 hour drive to Maryville from here. And we're driving down in your brother's truck, which is a nice big truck. But I've been thinking about, when I You know, I love t-shirts, and I get funky t-shirts made all the time. And one of the local guy in Manchester makes them all for me. And they usually have a theme. Well, when Alan and Jacob and I went to out to the Black Hills 2 years ago, I had t-shirts made that it was the last hurrah. 2021, I think, the last hurrah. And then the message on the back was 5 fake hips and a pacemaker tour. And I think you've put up pictures of those shirts on our podcast over time. But did I get my balls busted over calling it the last hurrah. I mean, Alan's going, well, this isn't the last hurrah. This is like, just a hurrah. And Jacob's going, well, this isn't the last hurrah. So I initially started talking to Jacob and Alan about what shirts I should get made for this trip. And I'm not going to announce that today, but I am going to tell you that I had an epiphany over the weekend, and it came to me. And so I'm getting a shirt for you, and a shirt for Alan, and a shirt for Jacob, and a shirt for me. And they'll all say the same thing. And we'll need to wear them one day when we're riding. We did that with the other shirts out in South Dakota, and it was a hoot. I mean, it was a ton of fun.
It sounds like a good time.
Everybody wanted to talk to us because of those shirts.
I have no idea what these new ones are going to say, but I was just going to suggest you put like part 2. And that way you could, every time we go on a trip, you just add another part until the last year we're going to ride, and you put finale.
Well, and I don't know, when that's going to be. The last year. I don't know when that's going to be. I'm going to be 68 this year. I still feel pretty good. I still feel like I can handle a motorcycle. And I still enjoy riding. So I don't think it's anytime soon, but you just don't know. I mean, you don't know. But yeah. I did have an epiphany. I've written it down. I know what the front's going to say. I know what the back's going to say. And so when I get those, and I'll have them probably, I'm going to order them. I was going to order them today, and it was pouring rain when I was in town. So I'm going to go in town tomorrow and stop by Steel Graphics. The guy there is such a nice guy, and he gets a kick out of the shirts that I order. He made me the Stay Fresh cheese bags. He made the ones with all the kids' names, on the front and their nicknames on the back. He made shirts for Joe. They have Ton of Fun shirts.
Yeah.
He made those for me. He made some of those for me. But so he'll get a kick out of these too. And yeah, so I've decided and we're counting down the days. August 22nd we leave. That's a Tuesday. And you guys know, when are you going to Michigan Adventure with the kids and Grandma and Mrs. Sawyer?
That's a very good question. Let me take a look at the calendar real quick.
My water softener kicked on. If anybody's hearing weird noises, sorry about that.
No, you just got a little bit quieter because it sounds like the noise canceling kicks in. So I believe we will be going like the 31st through the 2nd or something like that of August. Okay. So we had JR's birthday party at your guys' house this weekend, so we were out of town. Next weekend we go up to her grandfather's, which I can't remember where it's at, but it's 3.5 hours north of us, and we're already fairly north.
Okay.
And then we have a little bit of break, but we're gonna have, Jacob's birthday coming up, and then in August it gets bananas for birthdays for us.
So aren't you coming here for 4th of July?
Yeah, we're coming to you guys for 4th of July.
Yeah.
and then we'll have Michigan Adventure. Well, so 4th of July, then Jacob's birthday, if anything's going on, I have no idea. And then we'll have Michigan Adventure, where we're going to be gone, I think, for 2 to 3 days. And then August hits, and that is Joe's the 8th, Juliana's the 9th, I'm the 10th, and Melissa's mom is the 11th. And then they have like a short mini celebration because one of the passed away grandparents was the 11th as well.
Okay.
So we've got that chaos going on, and then after that, we will be going to Tennessee at the same time I'm moving into a new house, whenever that date is. So it'll be right in the same scenario. So it's a little busy. Then we got your birthday and Grandma's birthday in September.
Yeah, but that's.
Then we got Melissa's birthday,
Yeah.
JJ's birthday, and our anniversary in October. Then we have a brother's
and
birthday in
great
November.
Grandma Scully.
Yep. And then
Yeah.
we have her brother in November, and I believe one birthday in December, right? Just one, not two.
Just one, I think.
Montana's in December, right?
Montana's in January. Dallas is in
Dallas
December.
is December. There we go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a sprint to the finish for the rest of the year.
Well, yeah, and again, I'll once I get those shirts printed, I'll take pictures and you can post them. But it just kind of came to me. It's like what I'm calling this trip, and it came to me what I want on the front and what I want on the back, and it's just like the ones before. Nobody has a right to bitch because I'm buying them. So if you don't like them,
we'll just
shut
do
up.
like the last hurrah final part when whichever one of us is the first one to go. If they're like cremated, we'll just go dump them somewhere fucking illegal on a bike trip. I mean, I think that'd be cool.
Well, we'll see how we feel when we get close to that.
I think
Now,
hopefully we got a good long run.
like I said, I don't plan on stopping riding anytime soon. It's not it's getting away for a trip. It's not the trip. The trip I can handle. It's just like I don't like putting all this stuff on your mom by herself when, I take off.
My
That's
shit's
why I
not
was
sleeping in my bed. That's my biggest thing.
that but that's why I encouraged her to go on the trip with you guys. It's like I'll watch Max, he'll live for 3 days, whatever, 2 nights. I don't know how long she's going, but whatever. Go there, have fun. She will have fun. And you guys will have fun. And the kids will have fun, more fun because she's there. So it's like just go, you deserve it. And but I don't like up until a little bit ago, you have her parents are in the picture,
Right.
And they still are, but now they're in assisted living, which is a huge help.
And it sounds like it's going really well. I mean, as well as you could hope.
Well, it's a huge help to her. So anyway, it's not that I don't want to go or I can't go. It's like if I don't want to go, it's not because I don't want to go ride motorcycles and have fun. It's because I don't want to put your mom out there by herself, having to do all this on her own. So, but hopefully
Yeah.
that'll be a long time. And, that before we have to quit making stuff happen, I'm glad you're going on this trip. And I'm sure you didn't plan on moving during August and all
No.
this other stuff. Too.
You can't try and line it all up perfect. We'll figure it out as we go. But no, I think it'll be fun and once Max is no longer with us, I do think it'll be a little bit easier to get a few more trips in here and there, and I don't want to rush him out the door or anything like that, but I know that you guys got to take care of him, and he's not in condition nor the type of dog to be able to go to a place like doggy daycare. But once he's no longer with us, I can absolutely see the girls tagging along. I mean, Melissa and I can always take our kids to the in-laws and put our dogs in doggy daycare, and she could come wherever we're going, and mom could come with you, and And I'm sure Jacob and Jen could figure their thing out, and then Joe and Kelly if they wanted to. So I just think it'll be probably easier in the next coming years, just for a little bit. Once our kids start
Well,
getting super active, that might be tough.
yeah.
But for a few years, I think we'll have the opportunity to go on some trips, like a big family trip if we wanted to. And
Well,
one
and
thing
your
I've always
mom,
wanted to do is rent one of those like 20-person houses in Colorado sometime. So if you guys are ever
and
down, let's do it.
your mom's wanted to go on vacation, just me and her. And Jesus Christ, I hear about it. So I want to do that too. But it's like, I can't ignore that. She's not wrong. She's entitled, you know, she should be entitled to that. And so, yeah, it's like when things do, you know, when certain encumbrances are lifted more, I, I need to go places with her. I mean,
Oh yeah,
because
and I
we
mean
haven't been able to do that.
if it's Florida for a week, you do your thing, you do you, boo boo. But if you want to take her to Traverse City or wherever for 2 days, you guys just give me a call. I'll take care of Max. You guys go do your thing. Because I mean,
Yeah.
you've been together 40 years anniversary is what you had, and I can't think of how many vacations you guys have gone on, just the two of you, since I've been around. So I'm
Not
sure it's long
none.
overdue.
Not just the two of us, none.
Yeah.
So she's do that, and I want to do that for her. We had talked about some last week or last podcast. We talked about Get Shorty, and I had suggested that you watch it, and I know you tried,
I
and
try.
I understand. So you're gonna need to Get Shorty's a 1995 film. It's John Travolta. It's got a great cast: Gene Hackman, Rene Russo, Danny DeVito, Dennis Farina. There's a lot of good actors in that show, and I love the Travolta character. He's a Shylock. He was like a loan collector um, with mob connections, and his name in the movie is Chili Palmer. And he goes to chase down some money, and he ends up going out west, and he falls in love with the film industry. He's always been kind of a film buff, but I thought the movie was good. I thought it was a tongue-in-cheek mafia movie. It was Travolta. He made Pulp Fiction. This was after that, I believe. And this was like in his comeback, because he started out when he was a young man. He was on a TV series called Welcome Back, Kotter. His character's name was Vinnie Barbarino, and he really played into the Italian Vinnie Barbarino. I mean, he even talked like that through the whole thing. And that was a very popular show for a few years. And then he made Saturday Night Fever, and I think he made Grease. And then I don't know what happened, but his career kind of went in the shitter. And then, Quentin Tarantino gave him a break with Pulp Fiction, and
Well, a
that
lot of
started.
times when you do more Broadway stuff like Grease, that there, I mean, especially then, there was like a stigma
But he
between
did Grease the
movie and
movie. He did
yeah,
Grease,
but I
yeah,
mean, it's a based off of
sure.
Broadway.
But this was like part of this comeback. And again, I thought it was good. I think it's a tongue-in-cheek mafia movie. I think there's overacting in the movie that's done on purpose. Danny DeVito is great, and he's overacting, but they're doing that for effect. Travolta's doing that for effect. I think even Hackman does it for effect in this movie. I thought it was entertaining, but you need to explain the
Mhm.
reason that you couldn't make it through it. And because you're entitled to your opinion, but you
Well,
need to explain why.
I will say Travolta's character I thought was unique because he is kind of like that loan shark, but he is smooth and savvy and better with words instead of just muscle. But the same quality that makes him endearing in many films is what drove me nuts in this one, and is that he's one of those people that when he's talking to you, his mouth barely opens and he talks through his teeth. And so, in Pulp Fictions, he's got a few good lines or questions, and the way that he talks, it grabs your attention because it's different. And so I think it's very important in movies like that. Even in Phenomenon, when he's talking and he's saying something really smart that people don't understand, or he makes a one-liner about reading the book on Portuguese on the drive over to see a Portuguese woman because no one speaks her language. And they're like, "Did you read it?" And he's like, "Not all of it." It that style of talk is endearing and it draws you in. But in this movie, he was very heavy in dialogue, at least in my opinion, compared to what he normally is. And that shit with talking through your teeth, I'm like, oh my God, open your mouth. Just stop. And it was just tearing me apart. And one
That's
of the
funny.
funnier things about it, and I think the reason I'm almost even more sensitive to, is Melissa watches some of those like dating shows and shit. And on one of them, there was a guy on there that the whole time he talked with like his teeth together. And it was like episode after like 20 episodes. I'm like, open your mouth. It just speak with your teeth apart.
I just think that's funny.
But you know what I'm talking about. You know how he talks like that, and he's got his teeth together.
No,
And it's like, he's got almost like a grin while he's talking, and it is endearing. But when
look,
he's got paragraphs to say, I'm like, okay, dude, I'm tired of trying to figure out what's going on here.
to me, the whole movie was a parody. It was tongue in cheek. We've talked about films like that. Like I thought Tom Cruise in Night and Day was a parody of himself. And he was like making fun of his character that he's played in Mission Impossible and Jack Reacher and all these. And I thought that's what Travolta was doing. He was making fun of mafia characters by overacting. Danny DeVito was making fun of prima donna actors by overacting. And so I understand if that's something that bugs you, because I get it. There's things like that bug me too. But that didn't, because I just thought these, it's like the old Seinfeld thing. It's a show about nothing.
Oh, for
These
God's
guys
sake,
are
Seinfeld.
making a movie, and they're literally not only making fun of themselves, they're making fun of the character they're playing in the movie. And I just think that kind of shit is funny.
Yeah, and it's definitely the humor thing. Like, if Christopher Walken was making fun of himself talk, I would find that hilarious. But if George Costanza was making fun of how annoying he is, I would just think he's more of a piece of shit.
Well, there are
And that's
certain
kind of,
characters that are hateable. There's no question.
and like, I don't find Travolta hateable, but if there's one thing I don't like, it's the teeth thing. So the fact that he's overplaying into
That's
it, it's
funny.
like, that's enough.
That's funny. No, I mean, I totally get it. I mean, there's people I can't stand. The character
I love
that
Travolta in a lot of his movies.
the character that John Cryer plays on Two and a Half Men, Alan Harper, I would kill that man.
Yeah, he makes.
I mean, I would beat the shit out of that guy within a day. I couldn't stand him.
Well, I think and again, I know this is a big statement for anyone out there who likes a lot of shows, so this is just my opinion, but I think there's only one show that's hit that personality right. And obviously, because it's a big one, it's easy to say what it is. It's Friends. Like, when I look at Costanza, there is things in like episodes of Seinfeld I cannot watch because he and Newman are so annoying. And when I look at Two and a Half Men, there are times where it's more focused around Alan Harper, and I just can't finish an episode. But like in Friends, Ross is super annoying, but there's also many endearing qualities about him, and tying him into Rachel made him bearable.
That's fair. That's fair. No, I get it. I get it. So, I mean, I understand. It was funny because I thought that movie, and again, I enjoyed it because, and
I
they
thought
don't
it had
even
a really
call it
good
a
premise.
parody. To me, it was a parody. To me,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it was. There were people making fun not only of the characters they played, but of themselves.
Yeah, they're
You know,
almost like breaking the fourth wall without breaking it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
and there was multiple people in that movie who did it, and like you said, it was an all-star cast. So 1995, it's called Get Shorty. It was, I believe, Travolta's second comeback movie. When then all of a sudden Travolta's making movies every week, and I don't. I'm gonna have to recommend another one to see if he talks too much for you.
Mhm.
You won't watch
No.
it. Not after that. You won't watch it. But
Yeah.
anyway, so then we we wanted to tell some funny stories. And I thought of two that, in the first place, several years ago, the last time that Alan and I went on a bike trip, just the two of us. I want to say it was 2013. I think it was 2013. So it's been 10 years now. We went out to Yellowstone, and I borrowed a truck. I borrowed a trailer. I hauled the 1100 that you have now that you just bought. I hauled that to Topeka, Kansas. And that's when Alan was still living in Dallas. And he rode that 1500 to Topeka, Kansas. And we met at a hotel one evening. I mean, I remember I drove like, a long time to get there. So then when I met him at the hotel, we loaded his bike on the trailer. We stayed the night at the hotel. And then we drove to Denver, where Jan and JP live. And that's kind of where we home based, was out of Denver. But it was funny because he had all these um urinary tract troubles, and I had all these gastrointestinal troubles.
Quite the pair.
And we're both, like pushing 60, this 10 years ago. So we're both pushing 60. So, we pulled we went in the pickup truck a long way, all the way to Denver. And, but it was funny because like every half hour he'd have to go pee, or I'd have to go poop, and it was never in sync.
Oh
We were
god.
never in sync, so we never made good time when we were traveling
I'd just be
together.
like, dude, I'll meet you the next town
Oh,
over.
well, yeah, but we were both riding in the truck, pulling the bikes on the trailer. Now it got better once we got there. But when you're traveling, you're eating like shit,
Right.
junk, jerky and
Whatever's quick and easy.
yeah, yeah, fast food, and so yeah, and that made it worse for me. But I remember him telling a story. He was talking about, I think he was somewhere like in LA or something. And I don't remember. I mean, he had a very successful career. He was selling computers, and he worked for several major companies. I'm not even going to say one. But he's out there and he has to give this presentation at this, high-end place. And, he's meeting with a bunch of executives from this company. Well, he gets hung up and for lack of better knowledge, I'm going to say LA. He gets hung up in an LA traffic jam. And, all of a sudden, and it's like gridlock. And he's worried about being late. But then all of a sudden, he's got to go to the bathroom. And he's got to go number 2. And he's in traffic. And he's worried about being late. And he's like in a suit. And I don't,
That is not
Alan
good.
is about clothes and shoes like Jacob is. I mean,
Yes.
yeah. I think he said when he moved to Mexico, he had over 100 pairs of shoes. And, because they couldn't ship them all. And he ended up giving part of them away. And he was about that way with Suits. So anyway, he's hung in traffic. He's worried about being late. And he's like so gassy, he's got to try to let one out. And he sharted.
Oh. I believe I gambled and I lost.
Yes. Anyway, he makes it to the place and he's barely on time. He goes into the executive restroom and throws his underwear away.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Well, nothing, man. There's nothing you can do. And I guess he ends up, he's on time and he gives the presentation, and I think he ended up making the sale. But another one, I had these guys that I worked with on a construction crew years ago. I was an inspector and they worked on the crew. I can't remember, we were paving somewhere, and it was like all of a sudden we got hit by rain, so we got rained out. Then the plant broke down, and so we were having to wait for more asphalt to come. And these three guys had a work car that they bought together, and all they used it for was for work. And because the plant was going to be down for a couple hours, they said, and one of the guys who I was friends with, his name, we'll call him Scotty, he goes, well, let's run back to that Mexican place and we'll have some lunch. We got time. Because when you're working on a crew like that, you just you eat when you can. You eat what you can when you can. Lots of guys we'd cook food in the asphalt paver, in the spread, in the asphalt paver, that spreads the material. We cook food in the hopper.
That's one way to get cancer.
You'd have all kinds of stuff. Well, so we decided we're going to go back to this restaurant, and this Scott and Tim's driving, and I'm in the back of this car, and Scotty's riding. We go there and we eat quick. It was a Mexican place, and it was really good. And and we ate quick, but we wanted, and this was before cell phones, and we wanted to make sure, we had to be back by 2:00, and it was like 1, and everything was fine. We were only 20 minutes away. And so we're going down the road, and all of a sudden, Scotty, you can tell that there's something rumbling inside, and he's got to go. And Tim's driving, and I can see Scotty's like, he's got beads of sweat. He can't hardly stand. I mean, I think we've all been there, right? It's like you got gas
you're
pains.
gripping.
Oh, big
Yeah.
time. That's the word. You're gripping. And so Tim decides to go off the road and go get back on the highway really quick because he knows there's a rest area there. And, I don't know who said so, but Scotty said, well, there's a rest area at this place. And it was one of those in Jackson. Scotty's got on these painters, bib overalls, like they're white, tan, and a t-shirt, and it was summertime. It's, we're doing asphalt work.
That's
Scotty's like pressing the floorboard of the car, and Tim is like laser focused on the road, trying to get there as quick as we can. And I'm in the back seat, just hiding my face. I'm laughing, And we're all like, none of us are 30 at the time, and I'm just dying. So we pull into the rest area. Scotty, the car's not even stopped. He's diving out. Oh, he goes running inside. He's in there for like 20 minutes.
Well, you know what happened. I can already guess what happened. It's like when you get close to the bathroom, your little rubber band on there starts to loosen up because your brain knows you're close, and boy, you got anything with straps on, and that's trouble.
He got hung up on one strap.
Can't get these fucking overalls off. Shit himself. Oh no!
So, about 20 minutes. I mean, we're wondering if we're gonna make it back by 2:00. So we
Well,
go in, and Tim and I both go in there. He's
just
standing there
naked.
with a t-shirt and work boots and socks on. Other than that, nothing. And he's got his bibs in the sink, rinsing them out. And he had to put them back on and wear them.
Oh no.
Oh God.
That is the worst though, when you get hung up on like a coverall, overall, whatever it is. Oh, that is the worst. And the fact, so he was there.
Oh yeah, and
He
then
was point blank range, and then shit.
and he was there, and he couldn't get undone. He got hung up on one strap trying to get it off his shoulder and the bibs.
But then to come in there and see a grown man
Well,
naked washing
and then
his clothes in the
yes,
sink.
with work boots on and no pants or shorts. And he said, like, when we got back to the car, he just like looked at us and held up one finger, like, I'll be just a minute. Nobody
Yeah.
said a word, and we just walked back out to the car.
Well, what do you
And
say? Everybody knows.
both of us were just frickin' cracking up laughing. He told us later, as we calmed down and his bibs dried out on the job. I mean, he put those bib overalls back on. He's standing there trying to dry them under the hand dryer.
He should have just fucking hung him over the paver.
And well, yeah, but he didn't have anything else to wear.
Sit in the truck naked.
He told us that a guy came in while he was
You like what you see, boss?
and walked right back out.
Yeah. I don't want to know what the fuck's going on here either.
Oh my God. Oh,
I mean, if you saw a
that's
grown
funny.
man naked like that, you're worried, I think, more about a glory hole situation than you are
Well,
shit your pants.
this was, 40 years ago. It's been a long time, but it's still funny. And I mean, I've had those moments where it's like you're gripping, man. It's like you're gripping. And it's like, and you barely make it to sit down. And if I would have had bibs on, I might not have made it.
I just wish it was like somebody with a hilarious personality that happened to, because like if it was Alan, he'd look at you and be like, somebody shit my pants. Oh man, that is bad though.
I mean, that's what, to me, and I love different comedians. I love Ron White too. That's one of his funniest lines. He's talking about being drunk. He goes, and man, I went out and I don't even remember how drunk I got. But he goes, and I woke up and somebody had shit my pants. I just think that's hilarious.
Fucking bastards.
Oh God,
that is funny.
yeah. But anyway,
have you seen the video of his DUI?
No, I'll have to look at it.
He got pulled over, and this was when he was drinking. I think he's still sober now, but he got pulled over, and he's just saying, like, the cops are dying laughing, and he's getting arrested. I mean, it's obvious, but he's still being his comedic self, and he's like, don't, I'm unarmed, come on guys, I'm white. Like, he's just like saying all kinds of stuff, and they're just rolling. I mean, they can't stop giggling, they can hardly handcuff him, and it's just so funny that he, don't do the DUI shit, but to have that personality even in a bad situation, that to me is awesome.
Oh yeah, and well, and Scotty, and I haven't seen him in years, but he was a hell of a golfer. God, that guy could hit the ball. But he wasn't like Alan. I won't call him that, because very few people are. But he did have, like, he could take a joke. Like, we were joking about it the rest of the day. That's when he told us about the guy walking in and walking
I mean,
back
that's
out.
gonna be that had to have been a joke forever. I mean, every time he got in my truck, I'd be like, "You're not gonna shit your pants, are you?"
Every time we'd see him in bibs, we'd tease him about the bibs. That's what caught him, was the strap. Oh man. So anyway, you had this topic that you wanted to talk about, and I think it's a very good topic. So why don't you? And we haven't talked about any sports yet. So
Yeah,
let's
there had
go
just
ahead.
been a lot of stuff that I'd been reading about the NBA and what's going on with players, and I'd seen a lot of videos as well about how LeBron kind of messed up the NBA when he went to Miami because everyone's building super teams now. Um, and so when I got thinking about super teams, this topic came into my head, and I was just curious what your all-time starting five would be. And this is not, the greatest at each position, but if you were to assemble a team that you think could beat anyone, what would that team be made of? And the reason I say that is some people would love to, bump Kobe to small forward and put Michael at shooting guard, but the truth is there's only one basketball, so that's
Right,
probably not going to work. So we're
right.
not talking your greatest player at each position all time. It could be that, but we're talking if you had to assemble a team, who would it be? We're talking starting five, and if there's like one where you're stuck between two, then list the two people for that position.
Okay, are you going first or am I?
No, you go first. I'm curious to see what yours is.
Well, and again, I can explain my thoughts because I heard about it. You gave me this topic just before we went on the air, but it did take me long. It really didn't take me long. And I guess I would say it with this caveat. I'm looking at these guys as the five of the best players at a particular position. And I'm looking at it like these guys are all, I think, good enough that they could, if they had a month to practice together, they could beat anybody.
Yeah, almost like an
Anybody.
Olympic team, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
anybody. So again, not without his foibles, but I at the point I'd take Irvin, Magic Johnson. They're so at 6'8", 6'9". He even, his the knock on him was shooting, and he even refined that where if you gave him an open three, he'd hit it. He could defend, and again, the rest of my top five will, support his. If you're saying that a quick guards would give him trouble, they could, but he was so tall he could recover, and my other guys would kind of help him out. At the shooting guard, I'd have Michael Jordan. Um, great defensive player, great offensive player, and again, I think that Magic wouldn't have trouble sharing the ball with him. I
No,
really
Magic
don't.
was very passer.
You know, at small forward, I'd have LeBron at small forward. He can defend about anybody. He is still one of the best athletes I have ever seen. I don't think he's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen. I think Michael Jordan is. And I would argue even that some others, even though it's really difficult to argue eras, because, like Bill Russell didn't play against all the guys that LeBron's played against or that Shaq's played against. But I'd have LeBron at small forward. I'd have Tim Duncan at 4. Great passer, unselfish, great shooter and rebounder, and a very underrated defensive player. And at 5, it would be one of two guys. And I'm glad you gave me a little bit of a mulligan there that I could have two choices. Wilt is one of the most, even though he's a great player, he's one of the most underrated players that people forget about him or people never saw him. He's one of those guys. My belief is Wilt could play in any era. He could. He was very physical. He was 7 feet tall, and he was a great passer and rebounder. It'd either be him at 5 or Kareem. And Kareem would be, he was a very good shot blocker, and if I had to pick one, if you just said you can't have two at 5, I'd say Wilt. I know that's old school, but I would say Wilt because I think between Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and LeBron and Tim Duncan, I got a lot of offense.
But you think you can share the ball between Will and Michael?
I do. Wilt was a great passer. I mean, phenomenal passer. And as he got later in his career, when he was on really good teams, like he had Gail Goodrich, Jerry West on his team, Elgin Baylor for a while, and they were all offensive players.
But
I
they're all
mean,
good passers too.
and so was he. And he got to where I just, and I know that's old school, but yeah, if you
Oh, that's
said,
fair. I
if,
was just curious.
yeah, but yeah, it would be Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, and 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 Tim Duncan, I don't think is one of the five, maybe even the five best players of all time. And I know that sounds kind of ironic that I would say that,
Oh, he's the most
but
underrated player of all
but
time, in my opinion.
he's a great four
Yeah,
because
and those bank shots are
yeah,
unbelievable.
and he had mid range, and he was
And he's a
unselfish,
double double all
and
day.
he's a good citizen, and yeah. So I if
And
I
he
had
doesn't
to do
need the ball either. That's
so,
a big thing.
what's your five?
Mine's a little bit different than that. But it's very similar, but it's a little bit different because I'm sitting there, I guess, taking my point of view as if I were to coach this team, who plays my brand of ball that I would want to play, to be the greatest assembled team of all time. So for me, at the point, although I don't think the greatest point guard of all time, I take Gary Payton. I think he's a good passer, and I think he's one of the best defenders ever. So if I've got Gary Payton, that two, I've got Michael. Now their guards aren't doing anything, plus Michael can score. Gary can score as well, but we all know who
Well, they called him the
Jordan is.
glove.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's why I'm
yeah,
saying if I got, especially if you get in a tight scenario and I got Jordan and Payton double teaming, I don't know how you get out of that with the
pretty
ball.
quick backcourt, man.
Yeah, so I think I'd
Intense
go
backcourt.
Gary Payton. Well, that's it too. They're gonna push that pace like crazy.
Yeah.
So I'd go Gary Payton, Michael Jordan, LeBron. LeBron again, freak athlete, all that. Still one of the greatest players of all time, but I don't think he's the GOAT.
I
However,
know who your five is.
I don't. You might. I bet you know. Yeah, I bet you know one of them. But
Okay.
so at the three, I would do LeBron, but simply because I feel like I've got, the three and mid range covered, and he would make an excellent slasher. Now, we know he's a slasher and he can shoot, but having him the dedicated slasher on the team, the cut man, and whatever offense you're running, that's where I think LeBron's most dominant. So I'd have him there. Then at the four, I got Dennis Rodman. I
Oh,
already got
that's
enough
fair.
people that can score the ball. I want someone who's going to piss you off, who's going to run you to death and keep up with Peyton and Jordan, and he's going to grab me 20 rebounds.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick.
And the other reason that I pick Rodman is because of my five. So I would love to sit here and say Orlando Magic Shaq is my five.
That's who I thought was your five.
He would be my second pick at five. Now, when he was in Orlando, I've never seen a specimen like that in my life. I mean, just incredible freak. But Shaq doesn't have great mid range, sucks at free throws, which Wilt has got free throws on him for sure. But also he needs the ball, and he will pout if he doesn't get it. And so because of that, I put Kareem at five. And the reason I put Kareem at five is because I'm thinking about the offense as a whole, right? I've got Peyton and Jordan to spread it out. I've got LeBron slashing. But to not clog the paint, because of Kareem's skyhook, I can play high-low. So he can play high post while I have Rodman at low post for the boards.
And I'll tell you something about Kareem. It's funny because totally unrehearsed, we agree on 2.5. I mean, I had Kareem, so we'll call that a half. I had him as 1A at 5. And we had Jordan and LeBron in common.
And we're even closer on that on the centers too, because Shaq is my Wilt for you.
Okay.
Like probably never seen another center as dominant as Wilt, and that's one of the reasons you pick him. And I never saw Wilt play, but I saw Shaq play. And so,
Right.
although they're different players, because Wilt definitely had more finesse than Shaq, I would say had more skill than Shaq. Shaq is my version of Wilt. There was no Wilt in my day. So I do think even those two are closer together than they may seem.
Do you know that Wilt was an Olympic class high jumper at the University of Kansas? Did you know
I
that?
did know that. I did know that. I heard that. I think I don't know if it was a 30 for 30 on him or what it was, but they have pictures of it and he's got like a headband on.
Yep. Yeah. And again, this was a man who was 7'1", 300 pounds and chiseled. I mean, he was not fat.
Yeah,
was,
if you ever want to see him, look at Conan.
Exactly.
I mean, he's
Conan the
big boy.
Destroyer. He's in that movie. Yes. He's in that movie. Is it the Barbarian? It's Destroyer, isn't it?
Now you got me. I don't know. I
I
always think it's Barbarian, but that's just because that's the name I remember first.
Well, but
it's the one with the princess.
Kareem is a great pick, and the skyhook is unstoppable. And people forget this. Kareem was a great shot blocker.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Again, you've seen him enough that you know. For young people out there, a lot of young people that are your age or, and didn't have dads who were fanatics like me, you probably didn't see Kareem play.
But Kareem doesn't just have the NBA and his skyhook, which are famous. And I think if you know him, you should know that he's a shot blocker. But if you've paid attention to Kareem, I mean, even what he did at UCLA is unbelievable.
It's amazing.
And so he's dominant rules that long. Yeah, exactly. That's it. Like,
yeah.
But when they changed the rules, the reason, in my opinion, he might trump others at the center position for greatest of all time is because even when they changed the rules, he then changed the game. And there's not a lot of people that did that.
You've seen it, and you know it. I mean, I'm talking about that skyhook, which you could not block. You couldn't block it.
No, and it's from the free throw line a lot of times.
The free throw line, the baseline 10 or 12 feet away on either side.
And he's what, 7'1"?
Like a mid-range jumper, and you could not block it. If you blocked it, it was goaltending. Because
he's what, 7'1"? What's his reach? I mean, that ball's more than 10 feet in the air when he releases it.
And again, at UCLA, he couldn't play as a freshman. They had won the national championship. He couldn't play varsity as a freshman. They didn't allow it. The NCAA didn't allow it. He couldn't play varsity ball as a freshman at UCLA. They had won the national championship. I believe they had 4 starters back. And the first game every year at UCLA was the freshman against the varsity. And at that time, he was Lou Alcindor. He played on the freshman team. They beat the defending national champions in the freshman game. The freshman team with Lou Alcindor beat the UCLA team that had 4 returning starters and had won the national title. This guy, they outlawed dunking. He invented the skyhook. That was all him. And he's really the only person who has held on to that. And, there's guys who can shoot a little hook shot, not like he could. Like you said, we're talking about a 15-foot jump shot, only his was a hook.
And the other thing is because of his fitness and length, not only from doing a sky hook instead of, drop step on the baseline or whatever the case is, he not only had a good temperament, he wasn't hardly ever in foul trouble.
Right.
I mean, that was like a big thing through his career. Is like if you look at how many times he's fouled out and stuff, it's like for one of the greats, he's at the lower end of all time, and I think a lot of it is he drew people out with that skyhook, so he didn't have a charge very often. And then on defense, he was so damn long that it's like he tip a shot and not, try and swat it into the stands. So he didn't get a lot of fouls there either. And I mean,
He's very cerebral basketball player. He was a
yeah.
really, really smart player. He, he did what you said. He would tip a ball up in the air so he could catch it or a teammate could catch it. He wouldn't swat the ball into the stands. And he would bang with guys. That's early in his career. That's how they used to get to him. Is like they would put a banger in there. And I'm talking about a 6'10, 6'11, usually a white guy, who really couldn't play. Not offensively, but he was like a brick. Built like Lambeer, but not the same game as Lambeer. Because Lambeer could shoot.
Like a Blake Griffin almost?
No, there was a guy named Dennis Autry who used to be his nemesis, and he really wasn't, but he kind of was as effective on Kareem as anybody. And he was just this. I mean, if he hadn't been 6'10 or 6'11, he looked like a dude that you'd see at the end of a bar at some small town. He just looked like a dude that was just hung, and he was a banger. And Kareem didn't like that, but he got to where he would get physical back. Because early on, he would let guys like Dennis Autry push him around.
Well, but I thought when they started pushing him, and obviously you got to see it, I've just seen the highlights, but I thought I remember hearing it. It was, he still, like, he had the hook, but when people would push him, almost like he was playing on the block, but he was closer to the high post, that's when he started with the spin move and finger roll above the rim. And I mean, he could reach the rim from 8 feet away.
And guys kept swatting him in the face. That's why he wore the goggles. He was the first guy to wear the goggles, and he had those created for him because guys couldn't block his shot, but they'd swat him in the eye, and it was worth the foul. Like guys like Dennis Autry. And so that's why he wore the goggles. He was a very, I'm talking myself into him over Will because he was
he's a more versatile player. I mean, you might be able to argue he's not as dominant if that was your argument, but he's a more versatile player if you have to put him on any team.
Dude, and people just don't understand this. That skyhook was accurate from an arc, almost out to the 3-point line, almost out to the top of the key. I should say that, not the 3-point line in the NBA, but almost to the top of the key. And it was accurate anywhere along that arc. He could shoot it from the elbow. He could shoot it from the baseline. He could shoot it from the free throw line. And I mean, he didn't miss it. If he missed it, that was the rarity. That was the exception, not the rule. I mean, he was just a tremendous player. And he, he is, even though he's, in everybody's Hall of Fame and all that, he really is probably an underrated player because no matter how good you say he was better than that.
Yeah, and I don't think on the same level, but I do think that's how Gary Payton is too. I think Gary Payton was a lot better than he gets credit for, and you know what my play style was when I played. It's like I like being the grinder. I like defense. I like rebounds, and it's like if the biggest thing about that five, the reason I think they could get into people's heads and beat them not just by talent and skill, but also mentally, it's like, man, when you got Jordan, Peyton, and Rodman playing defense, there's a good chance that 3 out of your 5 are pissed off and frustrated.
Well, you're not even going to bring the ball up the court easy. Not with those guys playing D. No, that bringing the ball up the court is going to be hard because nothing's free. Not with those guys. Not with the guys you picked.
But I do agree, Magic's a game changer. I would worry a little bit about quick guards blowing by him and my other players getting into foul trouble. But I mean, like if I had to pick a second guard, I didn't get to see the Big O highlights or play enough to pick him. So I would probably have to go with Magic because the way he could facilitate the ball and drive the lane, I don't even care about his shooting ability. The way he can throw that, and again, being in the modern era, and I'm not saying everyone was shorter then, but not everyone was as tall. Being in the modern era at 6'9", he can just throw that ball above people's heads when you're throwing it to LeBron or
And
Kareem or
and again, he can recover because he's 6'9" on a lot of
right.
his lack of
Take it off the
quickness.
glass or
The Big
whatever.
O was 6'5", and I'm not shitting you, man. The Big O, especially later in his
He could
career,
shoot though.
he could shoot, and he looked like he could play linebacker. I mean, this dude was chiseled.
But I just and again, it's nothing against him. I didn't get to see him play enough, but from what I've seen, he was a tremendous scorer. And I can't have my point guard be a tremendous scorer when I've got Jordan at the 2. I need a supplemental
That's
scorer.
fair. Well, hey, buddy, I'm about to have one of those emergency bathroom breaks.
No, you're good. I think we went a little over today, but I'm glad we covered all the topics. So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm good to close it if you are.
I am, buddy.
Sounds good. Well, to all of our listeners out there, we appreciate you. We appreciate you sticking with us this far and listening to our BS. We hope you enjoy the content. If you have any suggestions, please reach out and let us know. But on that note, be safe, be smart, make good choices, and peace out. Love you, Dad.
Love you too, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.